Australia first competed at the Winter Olympics in 1936, and over the 20 Olympics that Australia has competed in, won a total of 19 medals at the Winter Olympics. Pretty good haul if you speak to most people in terms of how Australia you would think would go at a Winter Olympics. Of those 19 medals, 16 of them have been on snow. 2 of them have been on ice skates, and only 1 of them has been on a sliding track, and that happened in Beijing from our next guest. She won a silver medal in women's skeleton. It was one of the best things we had ever seen on this show and in an Australian Olympic history, I want to say. And outside of that, a World Cup winner. She's done so many things outside of the Olympics and has such a great career, and I'm so excited and pumped to learn about this and everything else in between from the one, the only, Jackie Narracott. Jackie, it is such an honour to have you on Off the Podium today.
Thanks for having me.
It's exciting because I still don't know if I'm over the fact that you got a silver medal at the Olympics. I mean, this is me. I didn't do it. You did it. I can't imagine how you're feeling, but I mean, this is something that was so great to watch. I mean, have you gotten over it yet? You're an Olympic silver medalist, Jackie.
No. Whenever it comes up, there's just this stupidest grin that goes across my face because it's ridiculous. And like to think that finally one of those like little shiny pieces of metal is actually mine is still like so cool.
It's amazing. And I think the thing that we talked up so much during those Olympics, and the fact that this is such a big deal for the sport in Australia and sliding sports in general, because this is in a sport where, I mean, where is the nearest sliding track? Is it in Korea? Is it basically PyeongChang is the nearest one to Australia? So, I mean, this is the equivalent of, I guess, if we didn't have a swimming pool or something like that, and you somehow go to an Olympics to win it. So, I mean, even in that intro, to hear that all of those have been won in that different sports and that. I should have warned you before this interview, Jackie, that you're probably going to get a very inflated ego because we're very big fans of yours on this show, and we love the fact that you got that medal. So just pre-warning you, this might be the best interview you've ever had in terms of the fact that you're going to feel really good at the end of it.
Perfect. Great way to like go into the final six weeks of training before we get onto ice.
Good. All right. Keep that positivity. And I will say the fact for our video viewers as well, I'm already loving the background. You've got a couple of your husband's sleds in the background, but I see Bing Duen, and I do believe you've got your shiny piece of metal too near you already, which there it is. Look at that. That is just fantastic. I don't think we've had a guest bring the medal out that quickly as well. So I mean, save the question. Pretty. Yes. Which I love the fact too that it is so nearby, because I think if I ever had one of those, it would never leave my sights. But I love the story of how you obviously got involved in the sport, Jackie. I mean, you've got a background, of course, from track and field. Your uncle obviously has a bit of history. We'll talk about him in that aspect. But when you got into track and field when you were younger, was that sort of something that you just drew you to it? I mean, what was it particularly that took you to track and field before you did make that switch to skeleton?
I loved it. So I guess having Uncle Paul and kind of the background of in terms of what he'd achieved was part of it, but then watching Sydney, and I think by that point I had my first proper athletics carnival and done okay enough, but just loved the feeling of being able to run fast. Particularly, and I think at that point it might have even been barefoot, which was just the best thing. Then Sydney happened, and watching the Olympics on holidays and watching all of our you guys just absolutely smash it in front of hundreds of thousands of people, that then cemented the fire of it. That's what I want to do. And I remember getting mom to right, I want to do the Lays, get me into that. And we walked in to sign on. And the first thing do you want a trial? No. There is no 2-week trial. I just want to do this. Sign me up. We're in. and it kind of went from there.
Wow, that's crazy. I love that inspiration from watching the Olympics, because you cover another question there too about generally we are sort of, do you grow up watching the Olympics and get inspired by that? So I guess ticking 2 boxes there gets you into a sport. And then was it also the dream of, I want to be the next Kathy Freeman, I want to be the next Melinda Gainsford Taylor, all those big stars that we had back in Sydney, of course?
Yeah, it was definitely Mel. But I also loved watching Tatiana Grigorieva and pole vault, Bronwyn Thompson, all of the sprinters and the jumpers were the kind of were the girls that I really wanted to follow and emulate, or ideally get a medal that, well, Tatiana did, but our sprinters haven't done yet.
Which, I mean, God, Sydney, I mean, we always remember Kathy, but of course, yeah, I hooked on Tatiana back then. I mean, I was a 13-year-old boy. Of course, I liked Tatiana Grigorieva. Yeah. But also, I mean, jumping Jai in the long jump, because I believe, obviously, you did a bit of sort of the jumping sports as well, and all the other great sprinters that we had. Nova, of course, switched from hockey into sprinting in Sydney. I mean, it was just such a great time. And you really felt, I think, because I think you're a little bit younger than me, but similar age, but you felt at that age like you got to know these athletes, didn't you? Because it was so well publicized and it was in our own country, as you said, and it's just sort of, you kind of got to know them. They were our Aussies. They were at the Olympics. Yeah, it was, and the whole buzz around the country getting behind all of our athletes and the Olympic atmosphere, and I'm an Olympic tragic. There is no other right show. If it's on, I will be glued to the TV. I remember for 2012, I was living in Perth, and obviously other side of the world, stupidly setting my alarm at like 3 a.m. to get up and watch Sally Pearson run, and all of our athletes was like, right, well, I want to watch these things, so I'm going to get up at 2 a.m. Why not? Sleep in the living room. Yep. That's what you do. Which, did you then sort of get hooked on the Winter Olympics at all? I mean, sort of a couple of years after Sydney, of course, we got our first, golds with Stephen and Alyssa. I mean, was that something that you also got hooked onto with the Winters as well? To a certain extent. I think it wasn't quite as big, but that could have also been, the coverage wasn't quite the same back then. I do remember vividly watching, or at least remembering, Alyssa and the enormity of her achievements and the enormity of Bradbury's achievements, obviously. And anytime Alyssa or Leah Laszlo or Jackie Cooper were on TV because they'd done these awesome things and winning all the Crystal Globes, I would just be like glued to the TV, watching them on Sunrise or the Today Show or whatever show they happened to be on until their segment was done. And then I'd just go off and do whatever. But yeah, anything to do with people doing amazing things on the sporting field, I was front and center. I'm surprised that Uncle Paul wasn't just making you watch bobsled all the time. I mean, kind of, was that a case that he would just be like, no, Jackie, come on, bobsled, that's where it's at, you got to watch this? Nah, he was also in a different state. So we were in Brizzy, he was in Canberra. Right. But I do remember at one point we were cleaning out Grandma's shed or something and stored it under the house, and she pulled out Uncle Paul's bobsled spikes. Seeing them was cool, and then I think my first pair weren't that different. Good to see it sort of keeps that way. Which, I mean, outside of athletics, were you very sporty? Were you sort of trying your hand at a bunch of different sports besides athletics as well? Yeah, athletics was my first love, but like at school, loved playing softball. I was a goalkeeper in soccer for a little bit until I snapped my collarbone and did my knee too many times. Ouch. Yeah, it's a special talent I've got of doing silly things. And yeah, eventually just kind of whatever I could do. I think growing up it was mainly athletics and softball. At that time, winter sport, it had to be netball, which I played but didn't really love it. And then got the chance to try soccer and a whole bunch of other different things. And yeah, but athletics was the. And how was that progression then sort of going before that switch ultimately came to skeleton? I mean, was this something that you were progressing up the ranks to a point where the Olympics was a possibility maybe if you had kept going? No. I realised by 16 that I wasn't quick enough, which was then when I really started to look at other options, and when goalkeeping kind of came into it, where Mum found a QAS advert for talent ID for looking for goalkeepers. So I went over into QSAC and tried out for the goalkeeping spot there, and did well enough to get invited onto that. Just basically trying to find any route possible to get me to the Olympics. I didn't necessarily care what sport it was. I just wanted to get there. But kind of by 1920, and kind of
given up, well, yeah, come to the realization that maybe it wasn't going to happen, that I wasn't fast enough, I wasn't jumping far enough, probably wasn't taking it seriously enough, if I'm really honest. And then just happened to be in the right place to try bobsled, and it all kind of fell into place from there.
So I was going to ask, did that conversation ever come up from your uncle? Like, I mean, was that something that you saw, the fact that he had done that was a back of your mind thought that, hey, bobsled, this could be an option?
I don't remember ever having a conversation with him. It was like he never like forced it or suggested it. It was always just a more driven by me knowing that, okay, well, Uncle Paul went to LA, went to 92 in Albertville. Like, I'm still fast-ish. Granted, I'm not like the fastest, and that's fine. But hey, let's try it. And like, if it was one of those things where if the opportunity came up, I was always going to jump at it. It was just whether that opportunity would come up.
Because I remember interviewing many years ago Emma Lincoln Smith and talking to her about sort of that transition into skeleton, and I believe from memory she'd gotten a letter in the mail sort of inviting her or saying that this is maybe what you're suited for, try skeleton, which, because I mean at that point too, it had only been at what, 2 Olympics at that point before 2010, so it was obviously still a fairly newish sport, which, and only what, I think 3 Australians women had competed by 2010 in skeleton as well. So I mean, when you're trying out bobsleigh, was there ever the option for skeleton, or did somebody tap you on the shoulder and go, hey, like, bobsled, you're okay, but have you thought about skeleton?
That's pretty much what happened. So I was training with one of our brakemen back in Brizzy, and they were like, well, we need a spare brakeman. Do you want to come across? Sure, why not? Let's go to Europe, why not, and see what this is actually about. Before I even stepped foot on ice, I hadn't pushed a sled. I'd been in Europe for about maybe 3 days. Wow. Just kind of getting to the track for the first time, and I met our skeleton coaches, and they were kind of like, well, you're too small to be a bobsledder. Have a think about skeleton. We've got a development camp in March. This is March 2012. Have a think about it. Okay, well, let me try bobsled first. That's the reason I'm here. I haven't gone down. Let me go down the track and figure out whether I even like this sport, and then we'll kind of go from there. And it was always then in the back of my mind, because we were on World Cup with bobsled, and skeleton and bobsled compete basically side by side, trainings at different times, but we compete side by side. So you kept kind of like seeing different things. I don't think I ever actually saw a skeleton sled go down the track, but it was always kind of in the back of my mind about, well, you know, this could be an option. Flagged it with mum, and she's like, yeah, sure. If you come home from Europe and you've still got money left, then be my guest, go for it. Sure enough, got home, like, right, so the US, shall you go? Like, yeah, fine, go for it.
Go for it.
Whatever, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Which, I mean, what was that experience like then when you went down in the bobsled? Like, when you tried it, you obviously liked it enough. I mean, you went on to win a medal at the Olympics, Jackie, so clearly you didn't hate it. But, I mean, do you remember that first go in a bobsled at the first time down a track?
I remember it being rough. So my first time was down Koenigsee in Germany, which is a really short, fun track. It's one of my favorite tracks in the world now. And just having no idea what was going on, because your head between your knees, you don't see a thing.
Yeah.
Kind of got up, and I'd been warned by our driver, Astrid, that I was probably going to feel a bit sick at the end of it, because that's just how it goes. You've never done this. It's a roller coaster with your eyes shut, essentially. And yeah, sure enough, I was like, I have no idea what happened. She's like, do you want to go again? Yes, I want to go again.
Correct answer. I mean, were you a roller coaster fan? Were you like a ride girl growing up? So, I mean, I can imagine if you are, that's probably a little bit helpful.
Very helpful, yeah. The faster the roller coaster, the more times I'm doing it.
Perfect. Well, that definitely ties out then. So at that point, when you then ultimately decide to make the switch for a skeleton, I mean, what's that first time like on a skeleton? Because you say you sort of, you know, head down, don't see anything in the back of a bobsled. A little bit different on a skeleton sled, isn't it?
It was so nice being able to see everything. So how you start in a skeleton, you start from basically halfway down the track. We started from corner 9 of 18 in Lake Placid in upstate New York. and they lied us down and said, lie there, don't move, we'll push you off, and we'll catch you at the bottom. All right, fine. And then, because at that point, I think first run, I don't think we hit 60k an hour. So you can, at that speed, you can see everything. And like, I remember track walking and even just going down the slab, like, okay, so I'm down here. What do you mean I'm going to be 3 meters up in the air? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But real quick, you're like, okay, first one, okay, that was fun. Second one, all right, that's it, I'm switching sports. And then within like, I think it might be the next day, we were looking at speed going, okay, like how do we hit 60, then 70, then 80? How do we go faster?
Wow, that's crazy. That's sort of that quick that you're just going to go that way and kind of really want to experience that, which, I mean, what's that phone call like to mum then? Like, hey, mum, so I'm in America, tried this, really like it. I'm going to be a skeleton athlete now.
I'm not sure she knew quite what it was initially. I think Dad claims that he had some idea. And I think they was like, okay, well, at that point, none of us knew what we were in for from any point of view. I was very lucky with the sense that at that time we still had a program. So I came in on development funding, and there was a bit of support to get going, thankfully. And then, yeah, it was well, let's try and get faster and stronger and
let's
go around the world.
Yeah, which we always find with so many of our winter athletes, you know, that funding and everything, particularly in Australia with sports and, you know, kind of just that financial aspect of it. So, I mean, when you sort of get that with the program you're talking about, is it kind of just enough money that can get you to certain events? Are you having to go straight out and sponsor, like get sponsors? I mean, how does that then work once you make that decision? I'm going to hit the World Cup. I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to go towards an Olympics.
So first year, I think we were, what did we get? I think they paid for our flights first year, and gave us, we got a sled. We had to buy our own runners, because our coach wanted some investment from our point of view, so that we weren't just given everything. And then we had to pay for all of our accommodation and cars and food and all of that kind of stuff. And then year 2 it was the reverse, thankfully. So we paid for our flights. It was definitely the cheap way of doing things. And they did everything else. But then when Sochi didn't go to plan, everything got pulled. So I owed mum and dad the world. I've spent my inheritance trying to get this medal.
It's paid off though.
Because yeah, they're not entirely mad about it. I've tried to get sponsors, probably not as hard as what I could have, but being in Oz when you really need money is hard when some people just want to give you stuff like, all right, stuff's good. Stuff's not going to get me around the world. And I really just need money, please.
Yeah. Because it's obviously like going back to that point about the facilities. It's not like you can just go into your backyard and do it. I mean, you are having to travel to fully do this properly, to go to tracks around the world.
Yeah. And then that makes it hard, because then if you're trying to like what can you give sponsors in return? Like, well, I can't then put you down a push track because we don't have a push track. I can't send you down a track from halfway down, which is completely safe, but that requires getting you halfway around the world. And there's no TV rights and all those kind of things that you potentially in other parts of the world can offer sponsors. It's just not there. I think some of the bobsledders have had a bit more success. But again, part of that is also, I think, my personality in just, I'm going to get it done. I'm the one who wants to do this. Some way, somehow, we'll make it work. And if there's outside help, I also like, I hadn't done anything at that point. So part of me was also like, well, I need results behind me, or I need something to make me worthwhile sponsoring. Like, who's just going to come out and give this kid who's done nothing in a sport that no one knows about cash to go and maybe be good at it?
It's crazy to kind of think that level which you've got to go to. I mean, I can't imagine then when you've got to buy a sled. I can't imagine that's cheap. I mean, how much does it cost when you're getting started off and having to get yourself a sled?
The sled that I've got now cost £6,000, so about 12 grand.
Wow. Jeez.
And I think that was with one set of runners. And runners are about between 400 and 800 pounds a set.
Wow.
And if you hit concrete, they're done.
Jeez.
Or if they get a good sized ding in them, they're done. They're
That's insane.
The sleds are precious, but runners are definitely the thing that we try and keep away from everything as much as possible.
And is that just the sensitivity because they've got to be a certain, I guess, material, something that they've got to work on ice? Whereas you're saying like if they touch concrete, they're just put.
It's more because of the friction. So they're all still runners, and there's two grooves and a spine kind of cut into them, which is how we get grip to steer and go straight down the ice. But yeah, like if there's a little nick in them, well then that makes them slower because friction is everything. And the running surface needs to be as smooth as realistically as possible. So yeah, if they hit concrete, you're not getting that out without completely ruining the runner. Little nicks from maybe like getting a piece of sand in the runner, and like we're talking like a tiny grain of sand can do some pretty serious damage at 130k an hour.
I can imagine. So that's why I was saying Uncle Paul's kept his, because I mean, I guess once you've used them a few times, even use them once, you want to, I mean, it's a memento at some point. You've taken them to the Olympics, but I mean, that's crazy to think that a pair of shoes can be that much. People buying Yeezys and Air Jordans. No,
sorry,
I mean, come on.
Not sorry. When I should explain this. When I say runners, the metal, not rails. I can't think of the runners is the only one I can think of. So the two of them that run down either side of our sled on the other side.
Oh, like the actual right? Okay,
not spikes,
there you go. I'm thinking
shoes,
but okay, see, there you go. That's skeleton noob right here, Jackie. So that
is
makes
entirely
sense.
My fault too.
Yes, but I can understand that now. That makes more sense as to, well, you wouldn't want to put them on any concrete because where's that going to go with that, which I guess like putting together a sled and the finicky nature and technical. I know we've spoken to say some of our bobsled guests and luge guests about sort of tinkering with the sleds, and I mean, is that a similar thing that you can? If you're a certain track, you can tinker like the runner to, pick up a tenth or two if you're feeling it in the track a little bit different here and there.
100%. Yeah. I tend to play more with my runners and my sled setup. I've got my sled set up the way I like it. So the responsiveness is similar every time. But then the different tracks have different characteristics. And then the weather too plays a massive ball in terms of how the ice is and then whether you can get it, whether you need a sharper runner because the ice is going to be super hard and super slick versus a runner that doesn't have so much grip because the ice is softer or just the way that the corners are, you don't need so much control.
Right. Which then, if you have a technical issue, I mean, do you have a certain amount of spares available? So say, for example, at the Olympics after run 2, you're winning, but all of a sudden, it's tapped the concrete. Does the AOC or you have like 1 or 2 spare or is like, fuck, you're out? Too bad. You're winning right now, but you've got no runners left. Go home. We took 6 sets of runners to Beijing, but they were all different cuts. So the problem some people travel with a race set and a training set of each cut. I don't have the baggage space for that. Most people don't have the baggage space for that. The Germans probably do. They've got a few things, right? And they've got everything.
And a cut. And a cast of thousands and about 6 bobsleds to ship it all with too. Yeah. Yep. Makes life easier. And like actually on that, if you hit concrete in a race or anything like that, we can't change runners between runs in a race, with the exception of the Olympics, because the Olympics and World Champs, you can change runners between days.
Right.
But on race day, between runs 1 and 2 or runs 3 and 4, you can only adjust the amount of bow that's in the sled, which is the contact patch for the runner. That is all you can change. So if you yeah, happen. I think there might be mitigating circumstances. So if you really hit something in the track, maybe, but then you need to get jury approval, and it's
Wow.
complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So that's like why sometimes you're really wanting to stop hard. And I mean, you've obviously got like a bit of a mat or something to slow you down if you go a little bit too fast, but you don't want to all of a sudden forget to brake because if you clip something and damage it, then you can't really do much to fix it.
Yeah, and the tracks are on the ice up to a certain point. So
Hmm.
if you go past that, it's game over.
That's great. I was watching, I can't remember what track it was, but I was watching some of the World Cup of the bobsled in the lead up to Beijing, and there was one track where, yeah, there was a very short stopping point. The commentators kept talking about saying that, oh, this is, ridiculous how short of a braking zone they've got, because all the bobsled just kept going off. It was kind of funny if I'm being absolutely completely honest.
That would have been the Eagles in Austria, either Eagles or the Plan, which is in France. And the reason I say Eagles immediately is because that braking stretch sucks. So come around the final corner 14, it goes uphill for probably 50 meters. Then you go around another corner and then it goes flat.
Wow.
So if you haven't gotten rid of enough speed coming up that first corner, coming up that first bit, you've got to brake stupidly hard and immediately.
Wow.
Like for us, it's hard enough. So we hit pads, and hitting those pads is a nightmare. The only injury, well, touch wood, most of the time, the only injuries that happen in Eagles happen in the outrun because you hit the pads, and the pads just send you every which way. People have like flipped, gone like headfirst into the short wall because the pads, like if you don't hit the pads straight on and one runner catches but one runner doesn't, then you spin. And at that
Wow.
point, it's just,
You think
it's
they'd get
chaos.
the gist of that maybe there's an issue there. Maybe they need to extend the runway or something.
Yeah, but in order, so we talked about so many times that we just need to blow up the end of it and start again. But the problem is they then run into a ski hill. So the only way to make it better is to completely blow up the end of it and just make it one long braking stretch up the hill, which requires a whole lot of infrastructure that they're probably not going to do. We just got
Yeah.
to suck it up and deal with it.
Skiers ruin everything, Jackie, let's be honest. It's
They
always
do
those
all the time.
skiers that do that. You mentioned Sochi, so you get started, what, around 2011, 2012. So was Sochi a possibility? Were you aiming to make it to Sochi that quickly?
In my head, yes. Realistically, no. Because we still had four incredible girls on the program as well as me. So I was only at the end of my second year when Sochi happened, and I needed two girls to get hurt badly enough that they weren't gonna be able to compete, and I didn't wish that on anyone. Like and I wasn't good enough. There is there is no way I would have been good enough to compete in Sochi. I would have been so far out of my depth. It would have been a horrific experience. So I'm quite glad I got to watch it from the US and just sit and do a bit of training and learn from them and watch them and do that. So yeah, whilst I wanted to go, like, yeah, sure, I can do this in 2 years. Yeah, realistically, not a chance.
But I can imagine, though, that you've got that Olympic dream and you've switched to a sport where realistically it's a better chance of you making the Olympics versus,
Yeah.
say, track and field, that it must feel a lot closer. That, yeah, okay, it's a bit of a pipe dream that I can be ready for an Olympics in 2 years starting a new sport. But I mean, I guarantee you right now, Jackie, if I started track and field tomorrow, I am not going to Paris. So, I mean, it's obviously a little bit more realistic that you can just sniff it a little bit to get a bit of a taste.
Oh yeah, for sure. And particularly when you're around people who are talking about the Olympics and world champs, like these words that used to be just spoken about in terms of, yeah, they're a dream, suddenly come right down into, no, this is a realistic, this is a legitimate possibility. It changes things, but also it made me drive a bit harder and go, okay, let's do this. It's close. This is as close as I've got. Let's keep going.
Do you get any sort of inspiration? Well, I guess you would probably get inspiration from your uncle, but can you sit down with him, say when it's getting closer to 2018, you're on the cusp? I mean, is there anything that he can give you an advice that can kind of help you with a mindset of getting to an Olympics at all?
His advice the whole way through was basically have fun, enjoy it. And I think I'm going to get the exact wording wrong. I remember in the weeks leading into PyeongChang, or around that time anyway, he like make the most of it. Most people only get one shot. Try and make it so that your one shot is what you've always dreamt of. Because who knows if you're getting back, it doesn't always go to plan. But embrace it, enjoy it, and just go for it.
And does that help? Did you follow his advice? I mean, you're a two-time Olympian, you're an Olympic medalist. I guess something of that probably helped along the way.
I tried to. I think the advice of make sure it's fun, and when it stops being fun, then it's time for it to end. He did caveat that with the fact that it's not always going to be fun. Like not every day is going to be fun, but the overarching thing needs to be something that you still enjoy doing. PyeongChang, I think looking back for where I was in my career and who I had around me and all of that kind of thing, it went okay. Personally, I won in top 10. I thought I was good enough for top 10, and it didn't pan out that way. There was also I didn't quite anticipate the emotional effect and ups and downs of watching Dom win his medal. And because we competed that night, I didn't quite take that into account. Not that I think it just took the edge off the adrenaline a little bit. But like my runs in PyeongChang weren't terrible. There was probably one. Well, that corner 9 and I did not get along the entire time I was in PyeongChang. So like a couple of corners didn't go well, but it was still a good experience.
Which do you think, looking back on it now with Beijing, that it was good to get an Olympics over and done with before then going to a second one? Like, I mean, let's say you had gotten to Sochi and gotten that initial Olympics out of the way, that maybe that could have benefited PyeongChang, because we often find that a lot of guests will talk about how, you know, you go to an Olympics, you got that goal ticked off the list, you get the first one over and done with it. The second time around, I'm an old hat at this now. I'm a veteran. I know what the Olympics are about, the pressure and all that sort of stuff. So do you think that experience helped then going into Beijing?
I think it did, but then also PyeongChang and Beijing were polar opposites in terms of just the entire atmosphere around them, obviously because of the pandemic and circumstances that were well and truly outside of our control. I think it would have been good had they been similar. But even then, I think our sport's one of those unique sports where you don't necessarily need to go to one to then medal, as was evidenced by the girl who won, Hannah. Beijing was her first Olympics, comes out and just smashes everybody. So yeah, I think it helps, but it's not necessarily the be all and end all with our sport, at least.
We always like hearing general Olympic experiences outside of competing, and obviously, as you say, PyeongChang very different to Beijing. So I can imagine each of them have their own uniqueness about them. But I mean, particularly say at PyeongChang, were you taking in the atmosphere, you know, pin trading, bumping into people in the village, going to watch other sports? I mean, you're probably celebrating a bit with Dom as well with his medal, but like, I mean, sort of, were you outside of the competing? Did you make the most of that on your first Olympics?
Definitely, yeah. So we were fortunate with PyeongChang. We got in a couple of days before we started training. So we got in, got the massive excitement of holy shit, I'm at an Olympics. Kind of out of the way, like running amok in the village, trying to get settled and figure out where everything is, pin trading, all of that kind of stuff. And then we settled in, right, time to compete, let's train. And then once race was over, it was, okay, what events are we going to? I didn't party quite as much, mainly because I was too busy like going, right, well, we can go up the mountain, we can go down the, like, there's so many different events I want to go and watch that we never get to see.
Yeah.
It was fun.
What was your favorite? What did you see in PyeongChang that stood out to you?
Short track. That was incredible. We were there one of the final nights, and it was 15,000 people packed into this tiny stadium. we were opposite the North Korean cheer squad. So we'd heard all these things about them, and then to see them kind of in
Wow.
action.
That's right, because they had that
And just
chant sort of
watching,
dance thing that they were doing, weren't they? Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and in perfect unison.
Yeah.
It was, and just like watching them go around that track at speed, it was nuts. And just the whole crowd got into everything. And if there was a world record, particularly if there was a Korean world record, the whole, like the roof lifted off the stadium. It was crazy.
Because, I mean, of course, they love short track. They're pretty good at short track, the Koreans. So, I mean, that's insane. And again, you can't, like, obviously, you go to an Olympics, you want to go to another one, right? But you cannot imagine that in 4 years' time, there's basically going to be no one there and you're not going to be able to go and watch these events. So it's kind of, it's great that you're able to soak that up really at the time.
Yeah, our accreditation is basically a go anywhere, get into anything to a certain extent. Pass like all of the open air events, we could just go and stand in the athlete zone. For the aerials event, we got to go up and watch. I can't remember whether it was Dave or whether it was the girls. It was one of them. Might have been Dave actually. And so it was the camera crew, a walkway, and then us. So we were like getting through with snow from them stopping. It was very cool to be so close.
Fantastic. I mean, you were there when Dave was robbed, right? We're still not over Dave getting robbed.
100%. Yeah.
PyeongChang. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And do you get extra access with Dom's medal? Does he just like bring that around with him, going like bronze medal? I get extra, access right now.
He didn't use it anywhere near as much as what he could have. I think it was in a locked drawer for a good part of the games.
Come on, this is what you got to do with these things too. But I mean, just sort of backtracking a little bit, when you qualified for the Olympics and you knew you were going back to watching Sydney as a little girl to that moment. I mean, I'm guessing that's a moment you will remember for the rest of your life when you knew at that point you'd achieve your dream. You were an Olympian.
Yeah, I remember we were in St. Moritz trying on our Olympic speed suits, and the first one I put it on and saw the ring of my chest, a little like happy dance. Because at that point, so PyeongChang, we had continental spots, and that was how I got to go. But yeah, it was still all right, we're on, and then like getting the accreditation and all the little things. Just like, yeah, okay, this is.
I love hearing about those little things because it is like, obviously like the uniforms, you get all of that but like, I'm glad you mentioned the accreditation because I'm like you, Jack, I'm an Olympics geek. So I can imagine that just little things, even probably just like here's the AOC book of what you do during an Olympics and things like that. I mean, do you keep it all? Like, have you got scrapbooks and just boxes filled with like all these little Olympic things that you've gotten over your two Olympics?
Scrapbooks, no, but all of it's next door in varying boxes and bags. We've got so much kit, it's ridiculous. Because like the amount of kit that we get is nothing on what the Brits get. So Dom, like for every bag of kit that I've got, Dom's got about 3.
Wow.
It's nuts.
That's insane. Which, I mean, it's interesting, obviously, because there's obviously a bit of uniform trading going on at Olympics. You've got Dom's, you just trade, he's got enough, right? You probably get a few of him to trade with some people as well. Oh, I'm British, half of it. Here you go. Get some of my stuff as well.
Yeah, I think my favorite stuff's probably from Beijing, is we were a bit more, not discerning, but traded with people that, like, all my mates, like, okay, what do you want? What can we swap? So everything that I've got, I now know whose it was, which is, I think, a little bit better than my swap from PyeongChang.
And you always wanted the Canadian stuff in Beijing, right? Because they had Lululemon. That's basically right. Like, get the Canadian kit. They've got Lululemon.
Yeah, and I just happen to have a couple of very good Canadian friends. So I got some of that stuff.
It works out well, right? It definitely works out well. Which, between PyeongChang and then Beijing, obviously, bit of an injury. What happened in that crash and just that recovery? Because I believe you basically didn't hit the track again really until the months leading up to Beijing, did you?
Not quite. So I never crashed. It was kind of a long, drawn-out process. So first runs back after 2018 in Calgary in Canada. came around corner called Kreisel, which is a 360-degree corner, and I hit a bump in the track, which is there if you're on a certain line, you hit it. If you're not, then you don't. Smacked it off track with a headache. Okay, let's run one. I'll go again. Let's see what happens. Run through, hit it even faster. Like, I got off but by the time I got to the Kreisel in Calgary is corner 10. By the time I got to corner 12, I wanted off the sled. Like, no, I'm out. This sucks. My head hurts. At the time, I had no one with me, so no coach, definitely no physio, no doctor. Kind of had to eventually, over the next couple of days, put it together that it was concussion because I couldn't look at a screen for more than like 30 seconds. I was tired, headaches, all that kind of stuff. Didn't slide for the next probably 10 days, I think. Went to Whistler, got back on track, did first half, and so was sliding quite well from what I remember. And then it was second half after Christmas, got back. Eagles and I haven't had the best of relationships anyway, which is the track in Austria. But even then I was unusually emotional for runs that weren't particularly bad. I was still in tears after every run, and according to friends afterwards, they were like, yeah, you were out of it. Like, we were asking you questions and there was just nothing there. Didn't race that. Got to St. Moritz the following weekend, and St. Moritz is the best track in the world because it's hand cut from snow every year. There's no vibrations. There's none of the bumpiness that we get with some of the other tracks, and it made me feel dizzy. And it was at that point, thankfully, I was working with the Canadians, and their chiro and both of their coaches were like, we don't feel comfortable setting down the track anymore. You need to, like, you're done. Sit out, and we'll reassess every couple of days, like every 24 hours from here on in. Go back to the UK after that. We were going home anyway. And by the time I got back to the UK and the adrenaline started to wear off, I was walking around town and I'd feel drunk within 20 minutes. And this is walking on flat ground.
Wow.
So eventually they diagnosed me with post-concussion syndrome. Had MRIs done, spoke to neurologists, just trying to figure out what was going on and like just how bad it was. Didn't compete for the rest of the year, obviously, because it was by that point they were post-concussion. Nah, you're done. Let's not risk it, particularly as we were going to Lake Placid in the US, which is rough. It's my favorite track, or one of them, but it's really rough and not the greatest for your head. Whistler had world champs, and that's 140 with 5G, so that's also not great for your head. And it took 6 months for me to get the full tick of approval from doctors and physios that I could return to full training. But then there was that was June, I think, June, July. And then there was still all right, well, I haven't tried the one thing that's actually going to either cause this to be okay, to like be career ending or not. Had to have that lovely conversation with my sports psych about, well, what happens if I get to Whistler and I'm dizzy? What happens if first runs back don't go to plan? Like, I had to be okay with it being with going to one Olympics and not going to plan from my own expectations. But thankfully, it all went okay.
Wow.
So 2019-20, that whole season was okay. I was very, very mindful of the load that I was under on track, and if I had any form of symptoms, then I was done. And it was a learning curve. I think definitely a silver lining, because without the concussion, I don't figure out that my depth perception was out. My eyes were converging way too soon. So trying to train them to be normal and at least have a better range of depth perception, which in a sport where you need to steer at very specific points in time, suddenly it all makes sense. Like, there were often times where I thought I was steering what I was supposed to, but I was steering too early. So like, well, like, that makes sense. I think I'm here, but I'm actually so far, like, much further back in the corner. Kind of makes sense. So then
Wow.
the performance started to get better once we figured out that, and then just monitoring my head and my neck.
Literally a silver lining, though. I mean, pun intended. It's sitting next to you there,
Yeah.
Jackie. But that, I mean, that's crazy to think that that sort of happens and then it leads to that. But I mean, that run you talk about, like when you go to Whistler, knowing that this could be it. I go on this. I'm dizzy. One Olympics is all good. I guess I'm back to the UK and I've got to find a new career. I mean, how daunting is that when you're on that start line, knowing that literally this run could be it?
I think that run was the most nervous I've ever been for a skeleton run. And I started from corner 6 in Whistler, which is, I'd never started that low down that track in my entire career. So to put the pride aside and like, no, this is how it needs to go. So we were very strategic in as much as we could be at that time of year with where I started. Because then right away we were like, well, is there a beginner track you can go to? Like, no, that's not quite how this works. But they were still learning anyway. No, but I can start as far down the track as I can. And if we go to Whistler, the ice is always smooth. So that's one thing out of the way that we don't need to worry about. And yeah, it was just slowly, then gradually building it up. I think I spent 2 or 3 days from corner 6 just to make sure that, yeah, it was okay. And then progress back up and then, yeah.
And then relief. Yeah, you're fine. You're ready to go, basically.
Getting that final tick of approval of like runs, I think I need to do probably might have been 6 runs from the top of Whistler before they would officially clear me, because in order to compete, you need to do at least 2, so 2 or 4. Like yeah, getting that final tick was like, okay,
jeez.
Beijing is still an option. Let's go.
What an incredible sort of sliding doors moment right there. Just to think that, you know, things could be so completely different from that point on. And I mean, from then, I mean, the good news is, you said Beijing, it happened. I mean, before we get to Beijing, though, obviously the World Cup gold. I mean, I remember sitting here seeing the news and we shared it on our page, and obviously it got a bit of coverage here in Australia, you know, 28 days before the Olympics. You want to win your first gold medal at a World Cup, Jackie, you do it within a month of the Olympics. I mean, is that moment then, I can't imagine the confidence is as high as it's ever been in your life, where you think, well, fuck, all right then, bring on Beijing.
Yeah, it was that concrete evidence that I'd been longing for and searching for ages. Like, yeah, I really like this. Really is a possibility, and I can match it with the best in the world. And it's the whole season I'd shown glimpses. Like in training, I was top 10 quite often, and there were a few times where it possibly could have happened, but I just, for whatever reason, hadn't learnt enough lessons. And it just had to take until the moment in Winterberg which is a week before St. Moritz, where I was like, fine, whatever. If I don't medal, I don't medal. I'm going to a second Olympics. Because at that point, it was kind of cut and dry by that point, thankfully for me. And they were right. It is what it is at this point. I'm going. Double Olympian's pretty good. All right. And then, funnily enough, that final little bit of tension that needed to be released, and it all just fell into place.
It just happened. That's incredible. Which, I mean, does it? Obviously, it adds a bit of pressure because I guess people in Australia, maybe you get a bit more media attention on you in the lead up to that. But I mean, are you somebody who thrives on that pressure? Do you like the eyes on you? You know, more people are watching you now, given you're going into the Olympics with this.
Yeah, it was cool. I still didn't expect people to watch. The number of people who said after me that they stayed up to watch, I was like, no one does that. No one stayed up to watch me compete. Forgetting, of course, that I was sitting in gold, and that it would have been massive news because we in Beijing, once I got off the track and I was sitting first after day 1, we're like, okay, we need to avoid everything. Like this needs to stay as calm as possible and avoid all the outside distraction. We needed to keep my brain distracted as much as possible, so I didn't run the next 24 hours over in my head too many times and get too excited. But yeah, it was I still run out of words.
I mean, I can't imagine what that is like going to sleep that night. that after 2 runs at an Olympic Games, not only you're in a medal position, you're in a gold medal position. So I think it's a smart idea to kind of get distracted. Did you get to sleep that night? Like, I mean, like, how do you go to bed that night knowing what the next morning could potentially bring you?
I did. The hardest part was the following day, because we had about 36 hours between the end of run 2 and the start of run 3. Because the run 3 wasn't due to start until like 8 o'clock the following night. So after day 1, I think we got back into the version until like lunchtime. So getting to bedtime wasn't too bad with getting ice bath done, like recovery and getting sled prep and kind of the standard mid race stuff done. It was then trying to kill the time between waking up the following morning and getting to race time without me using up all my energy. I mean, we worked it out that I think at one point I had like we tried to kind of split the day. So got up at normal time, went through everything, then mid-afternoon I went and we like had tried to properly go back to sleep, so that when I woke up again, it was time to kind of go back through normal race routine, because we quite often race in the morning. So get up, get ready, right, no time to think, let's go.
Because I can't imagine you just, you wake up and get on your phone, oh, cool, that's what's happening, and, let's put on a show, Dom, let's watch something. Like, I mean, it's not just a regular Sunday for you at that point, is it, when you're leading an Olympics at that point?
It had to be, though. In order for it to go as well as what it did, we had to try and make it as normal as possible. So I didn't look at social media. I didn't basically just turn my phone off, because it was the best way for me to stay in the little bubble that we'd kind of created. And Dom was amazing. Dom did so much of my sled prep and just let me kind of chill and do whatever was going to keep me distracted enough.
Because going back to my point I asked about Uncle Paul, but I mean, obviously with Dom being there 4 years earlier, getting the bronze, I can imagine he, outside of the coaching aspect, can provide you with a bit of advice. I mean, does he do that before run 3, run 4? I mean, kind of what does he say to you on the cusp of a moment which he obviously experienced 4 years earlier?
He was super nervous. He held it. I had no idea how nervous he was. Not sure whether that says how much of a bubble I was in or how well he hit it. But in the weeks leading up, I think even that the middle night, I'm sure I asked a question about like how do we handle this? What did you do? Because he was sitting in bronze overnight in PyeongChang. How did you handle it? What do we do? I'm also very fortunate to have a very good sports psych and my sprint coach as well, who just got to be good enough. Done the hard work, have some fun. You don't have to try any harder. Clearly it's working. Just go and do and have some fun and enjoy it, and what's meant to be will be, and who knows.
Which, it's just insane to think that feeling. I can imagine. I mean, we saw the footage of you when you cross the line on run 4 and just the reaction you have, because you've won a medal. You've won a medal. It's going to be gold or silver, of course, at that point. I mean, have you processed it to this point where you can describe that into words? Because, I mean, your emotions and your face say it all at that point. But, I mean, what are you feeling at that point? You've won an Olympic medal.
So coming up that outrun, it went from absolute elation. So the outrun in Beijing has 3 different steps. So you come up across the finish line, up the first one, and then that's when you see a clock. But also the second one, there's must be the second one. Flat to first stop, up another one. Then you get the clock, and the clock has a rank, and then your finish time. And so I saw the 1, and the fact that it was green, I'm just going, yes. Because at that point, and the whole point of skeleton is if you final run for race day, you want to cross line and see it 1. That means you've held your spot. It's going to be you're not dropping any further down. And then that final one is like, wait, was that right? Does that mean what I think it means? Holy shit. I need to brake. trying to check the big screen. Like, okay, yeah, no, that is right. I'm not imagining things.
Wow, that's insane. And then at that point, it's that weirdness, of course, because you get put in the little box where you're waiting for then Hannah, which, I mean, you don't wish anyone to crash, Jackie. I know you don't. You're all friends and everything, but I'm sure there's a bit of you that goes, oh, like, if you're going to crash, I have a bit of a fuck up now, Hannah, now's the time. Like, you know, just a little bit here.
Yeah. Stay on the sled, be okay.
Yes.
But if you kind of crumble, I wouldn't be mad about it. Yeah. But with that being said, I was with Kim, one of my good mates from the Netherlands who got bronze, and we were both in Leah's box watching Hannah. And like, Hannah's first run on the run 3 was like 3 tenths faster than mine. I was stoked with my track record. And the next thing, she comes down and takes 3 tenths off it. Like, cheers, thanks.
Yeah.
No.
If you beat a track record and want to get beaten by someone, you want them to, like, you know, better that, right? You know.
Yeah, but then watching Hannah's final run, Kim and I were just like, it was probably, I think it was the best run of the entire, like, 2 days. So we're watching, like, as much as I would love to win this thing, being beaten by that run, you're okay. Like, well done, fair play.
Yeah,
that was good. There's nothing I can really like pick apart in that run.
Which it's the thing that I love about sort of obviously seeing your reaction, Hannah's, like, it was maybe the happiest podium of Beijing. Like, there wasn't a single, like, it wasn't like you were like, oh fuck, I lost gold, or, you know, like, it just, every one of you looked so happy. I don't think I saw a happier podium. I mean, you all just looked over the moon, no matter what color of medal you had around your neck.
I think all 3 of us created history. So, like, Kim and I obviously were the first ones for our countries. Mm-hmm. And then Hannah, I think, is the youngest to ever win gold, at least
she was the first
sliding.
Female German to win a gold too, was she not? I think as well.
Yes.
Which, I mean, the dominance the Germans have on the sliding track. Yeah, but like obviously not quite the gold, which they nearly got the sweep in Beijing if it wasn't for Kaylee, of course, in the monobob. But it's, yeah, I mean, it's just the 3 of you, just the thrills, and then Dom's reaction. I mean, obviously Dom's probably happy there, but I mean, this part of you guys sucked in. You got bronze, I got silver, I did better.
Yeah, but the best part was that I didn't have to say it because everybody else was saying it for me. Like, yeah, you know, this is great. Thank you.
Yep. I can gloat without gloating. But I mean, it must be a nice little moment for the pair of you, and the fact that, as you said, sort of back in PyeongChang, you can share that emotion. So you know what it was like for him in that aspect, because you were on the other side of that in PyeongChang. So now he's there. So come Milan, I mean, it's just old hat now. It's just kind of like, oh well, medals. Oh yeah, that's right. One of them had an Olympics. Okay.
We need gold.
Yeah. Well, you got to clean the set.
One I'm missing. Yeah.
Yeah. One that you got to complete. The thing, though, going back to my introduction, and obviously just what it has done for the sport in Australia. I mean, a lot of your interviews afterwards, I loved how your focus was straight away was, well, this is going to create the next generation. We need more girls. We need more people in the sport. In the time that's passed since Beijing to when we're recording this, have you had many people contacting you? Have you seen much of that? And if not, what can we do, Jackie? How can we get these girls and guys to get into skeleton now that we've had this success?
From what I've heard from our federation with the testing camps that we've had, not a lot's happened, which sucks.
Wow.
And part of me feels guilty about that because I'm not in Oz. I'm in the UK, and I feel like maybe if I was home, maybe there might be something we can do about that. But for now, that the reality is this is where I need to be. So hopefully there's something. I mean, we'll get to come home. We'll get to come home at some point. Hopefully for the next testing round. I think because we need more bobsledders, and I guess it's easier to get into bobsled. They're being funneled to bobsled. I don't know, but yeah, it sucks. I don't want to be the last.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, crazy to think that more people go into bobsled, because, I mean, I picture it skeleton, it's more individual. You've just got one sled. That seems more, you don't need a team. I mean, I know you've got monobob, but I mean, I don't know, like, surely skeleton's cheaper and easier? Like, bugger off, bobsledders, come into skeleton, come on.
It is, but the success can come quicker with bobsled.
Right.
So if people want to get to an Olympics in 4 years' time, which is the point that that's what it is, bobsled's the easiest option, because if you're fast and powerful, you can pick up pushing fairly easily, because, and all respect to bobsleds, I know how hard it is to push, but there's not that driving aspect that you then gotta learn, and the feel behind it, and which I'm sure Ash and Bree know all too well. But you can come in as a very fast, very powerful sprinter and learn to push a sled and be quite successful at that fairly quickly. Whereas the driving side of it takes 4, 6, 8 years to learn. So it's much more of a longer term process. And I think maybe until we get, unfortunately, the funding to at least help these kids get on ice and get some of the basic equipment behind them to begin with, to try and lessen the initial outlay. Like it's a fair chunk of money to be expecting and asking people to outlay to try a sport they don't know if they're even going to like yet. So if we can, I think probably the easiest way around that might be a push track. If we can get a push track, put it in Brisbane. Brisbane's becoming the home of winter sports in Oz somehow.
Yeah. Well, they've got an Olympics too. They've got a Winter Olympics technically in 10 years, Jackie. So, I mean, it works.
Yeah. Yeah. If we get a push track, then we can get these kids, and I say kids, I don't want kind of 20-ish, get them to at least try going head first, try pushing a sled, or even like try pushing a bobsled and go, okay, do you like going head first? Are you quick pushing a sled? Do you get the hang of it? Because it's fairly coordination intense. How I managed to do it, I've still got no idea. Coordination's not the best. And then we can go, okay, all right, let's get some funding behind you to go to one of the development camps, and then go from there. That's the development is the biggest thing, and needing a program and a good coach, because it's one thing to send these kids off to the US and Europe and go down with the development coaches, but if we don't have a consistent coaching, then we're kind of pushing shit uphill, for lack of a better term.
It fits the situation there, I think. Two things that are coming out of that, Jackie, that I'm saying, and all the respect in the world to our bobs. We've had plenty of bobsledders on this show. Ash, Bree, Sarah, Kiara, they're good friends of ours on the show. But I'm saying this right now, bobsledders, lazy. Take the cheap option. They don't do the work. I want to go to the Olympics in 2 years. Lazy. And second of all, we need a movie. They've got cool runnings. Bobsled, cool runnings, yippee. Where's the Jackie Narracott story? I want the Jackie Narracott cool runnings movie by Milan, and then we're going to have a whole influx of the next generation of skeleton racers. That's how we're going to fix this. Lazy bobsledders and a movie. There we go.
Don't kill me, bobsledders.
I take the blame for that. I think I've lost Bree and Sarah and all that. They're not coming on the show anymore. Where's their medal? Jack, they've got World Cup medals. Good for them. But where's their Olympic medal? Come on now. It's got a bit of extra weight. And it's a heavy thing, right? That medal's a heavy medal, isn't it? Yeah,
that thing with half a kilo. And then I swear the box that they gave us to protect it is like another half a kilo again.
Great for the carry-on back home, I can imagine, right? You've already got your weight limit, so,
yeah.
Sled, runners, all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's a pointless question to ask because you've literally got it next to you, but I mean, I always like to find out what you sort of do with the medal. Is it something that you're going to put on display? Do you still sort of just carry it with you because it's this cool, shiny new thing that you've had now for a few months? I mean, sort of, what are the plans with it?
We've got a display case, which we got after Dom's medal. So we had to rejig it. It had Dom's helmet, his mascot from Sahurang from PyeongChang, and his medal. And I was like, right, well, helmet's coming out. It is sitting on a Union Jack flag, but at least our flag has part of that anyway. So
true.
For now, it's fine.
Yep.
But yeah, the two medals are in there side by side. Once we get a house, and then I think we'll probably get them both framed properly, along with Dom's bibs are mine. The plans are to frame both of mine, and then we'll get them displayed properly somehow.
And have that empty space for the gold, of course, for Milan. You need that third one there.
Yeah.
And the most important artifact behind you, I mean, you mentioned Surang, you got a Bing Duen Duen. I mean, God, they've sold out everywhere. You've got the real deal, right? So, like, I mean, this is more precious than the silver, isn't it?
Yeah. We were told, so Alyssa Camplin was deputy chef de mission.
Yep.
And when we got there, she was like, do not let that thing out of your sight. Keep it in your hand, because otherwise people are going to nick it and they're going to sell it. We initially thought that we weren't getting one because of how our podium went. There was 8 minutes between Hannah crossing the finish line and us walking out for our medals, and we got the flowers, which are actually crocheted, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Either way, so we got given them, and all three of us were like, "Oh, what happened to our mascot? Like, everyone else gets a mascot. Why aren't we getting a mascot? Why do we get ripped
Where's
off?"
my Bing Duen Duen?
Pretty much, yeah. But then when after we'd done the mix zone and then walked into the press conference, ours we're sitting on the desk of the press conference. So
Best moment of the day. That's where
ours. Good.
There it is. Thank you very much. Which I mean, it was fascinating how they sold out. And I literally looked up on eBay the other day, and I still think they're selling for like $300 on eBay just for a basic Bing Duen Duen toy.
They were a hen seed, even in the village. We weren't looking. We didn't do a whole lot of exploring the village pre-race, and I looked at one and went, yeah, maybe, because this time around the only one we got given were a little like keyring basically. Whereas in PyeongChang, we all got given Sahurang, and I've forgotten the Paralympic mascot, but we got like reasonable sized ones of them each.
B, I think. I think we called it Surang and Burang on the show, but yeah, Bandaby, or that one. Yep.
Yeah.
But Bing Duen Duen wins the day. The best mascot we've had, I think, since Izzy in Atlanta. That's what I say. I mean, God, what a Brisbane's got a lot to work up to, I think, for 2032. I mean, I don't know. We get a Jackie mascot. I mean, you're from Queensland. Put you on a skeleton sled. Like, I mean, you could be the mascot for 2032. That could work.
I cannot wait to have a home Olympics. It's going to be awesome.
Winter Olympics too, Jackie. It is technically in winter. It is in July. So I'm just saying we could push the AOC and the Brisbane Organising Committee to include skeleton. We get a home track. There's an excuse to build one in Australia. You got the Jeff Henke Centre. Like, there's a sled vert. Now that you've got we want the people in skeleton. The silver medal needs to bring some money and funding with it. Boom, track, Brisbane. There you go.
Problem solved.
There you go. It's that easy. I mean, they're cheap. I'm sure they don't cost much to build at all. That's why there's so many of them in the world, right? You know, I've got one in my backyard. I built it on the weekend. I was bored. I was like, a skeleton, I can do that. So, I mean, I'm going to wrap up with the fun get to know you questions in a sec, Jackie. But obviously pushing towards Milan, everything along those lines, I can imagine right now. But if you have one hope, so obviously getting people involved in the sport, you've got the silver medal with this massive breakthrough, but 10 years' time, if we were talking, and it is, you know, in the lead up to the Summer Olympics, would you like to have seen, outside of your 2 gold medals that you'll win in 2026 and 2030, would you like to see, I don't know, like a certain amount of girls, like a program? Like, what would you like to see in 10 years' time with skeleton in Australia?
I would love us to have a fully fledged program again, like we used to have, and be consistently competitive on the World Cup Tour again. We've done it once. Our girls were always pushing for medals. There is no reason why we can't do it again. We just need to get the athletes and the funding and the personnel behind us. And who knows? The
world is our oyster. Get rid of those lazy bobsledders. Just get out of the way, girls. Come on. Skeleton's coming through. We've got the Olympic medals. There you go.
Skeleton's more fun.
Exactly. Head first. I mean, God, like you said before, you got your head behind somebody else. You can't see a thing. Like, I mean, where's the fun in that? You know, just like you want to head first, straight. Luge, what are they doing? Laying down, lazy. Come on, Alex.
No way.
You're pushing off the thing. You're not even running. Even lazier. Luge, even lazier.
Don't get me.
Exactly. Don't get me started. These questions that we like to wrap up with, Jackie, these were a set of questions that were given to Team Canada athletes ahead of PyeongChang and Beijing. As always, there is an option to draw if you want. It's not compulsory, But if you're bored today and you want to do some homework, draw your favorite animal, draw a teammate. You can draw Dom. I don't know. But if you want to, flick it to me in an email and we can put it on our social media with this interview. But no pressure there. It's completely optional. And I'm seeing here, so I'm using the questionnaire that was given to Jane Chanel. Did you race against her constantly or still do? So Canadian.
Her and I are very good mates.
There you go. Well, I'll compare your answers. Let's see. Let's get competitive here to see that. First question for you. You're allowed to answer your own moment if you want to. Your favorite Olympic moment is?
Ooh.
I've stumped her.
That's a hard one. There's too many going through my head.
Give us some. You can multiple options. Let's go for it.
Okay, well, obviously, Bradbury, obviously.
Yep.
Lydia winning gold in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
Lydia being the first to complete a quadruple twisting triple somersault in Sochi. That was sick. Summer. Anna Mears, because I adore her. She's crazy.
Queen Anna.
In a very good way. Her comeback story is, and just her story in general is ridiculous. Oh, what else we got?
I like some of these. Some of these were not many people answer, Anna, and I'm glad you did. Sally, absolutely, yeah, for sure. Yeah. These, I mean, also contenders as well for cauldron lighting in Brisbane. You know, I've already, you know, I keep selling. My idea, Jackie, is I keep selling on this show is Kieran Perkins comes in, great Queenslander, goes to light it. He falls over. Stephen Bradbury picks it up. He lights a cauldron. I think that sells itself. Yes, but if you don't have Kieran involved, you could have Sally. You could have Anna. You know, yourself. You know, it's
Susie.
so many. Yeah, exactly.
The list is massive.
Come on. I mean, I'm sure that are they not going to rename the Gabba the Susie O'Neill Stadium or something like that? Like, I don't know. All that. Too many Queenslanders. There's too many good ones out there. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Either flying or transportation.
Like teleportation?
Definitely. Teleportation. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, you can have both. On this show, you're allowed to have multiple. You can have them both. Well, I bagged out Cool Running, so screw that. My favourite sports movie is, besides your own biopic, coming to cinemas 2025.
I mean, Cool Runnings is definitely high on that list.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
We're just trying to step away from, you know, bobsled. Too much promotion there. Your funniest childhood memory is? Wide open question, this one. It's, you know, there's a lot of childhood memories I'm sure you've got.
Yeah.
I like Jane's answer here. Playing in the mud with my brother and sister. She played in the mud. That's what they did growing up in Canada, apparently. That's standard. Yep. Constant.
Yep. My funniest memory.
If you don't have one, we can skip that one.
I've got no idea. Yeah.
No idea. No. Yeah. All right. We can skip that one. Your favorite pump up song is? You have a song that gets you sort of in the zone before you go down the track?
So I'll give you two, because there's one for gym and then there's one for sliding.
Okay.
My one for gym is Back in Black, AC/DC.
Good choice.
Like really heavy squat session, tired, just need to get that last set done. That's the first one that comes on.
Mm-hmm.
And then for sliding, I went with the last two songs that I was listening to before particularly race runs are Dare to Dream, which is the Olivia Newton-John 1 from Sydney.
From the opening ceremony
and
in
then,
Sydney. Yeah.
And then Permission to Shine. I quite like the lyrics in that.
Good choices. I like that sort of Sydney 2000. That's a great song. It's a
great song.
Do you remember we talked about this recently during Birmingham when Vanessa sang in the closing ceremony, Her Heroes Live Forever from Sydney 2000?
Yep.
Great song. That gives me chills still to this day. Oh, soundtrack.
I may have had that soundtrack on repeat for a little while.
I may have too. And another thing, I want to put this out in the universe. I'm selling it for Brisbane as well. It's been a while. we're going to get Savage Garden back together, and surely they're going to be like they've not. How long has it been since Savage Garden have performed together, Jackie? This would be bigger than the Olympics opening ceremony. Darren and Dan, like, come on.
Powderfinger too.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, come
Frizzy
on.
man.
How many? Like this is stop it, Queensland. Just stop it. All right, I'm from Tasmania.
Nah.
We've got like 2 people we can put up. Queensland, half the population. It
Catch
seems.
up.
Yeah, exactly. God, come on, Tasmania. The most recent TV show you binge watched is
The Block.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Block.
Okay.
There's a few kind of like home improvement shows that are on heavy rotation.
Is that you hinting at that there's some home improvement going on in the Narracott household? Is that sort of where it's going? Or
I wish. I did an interior design course over COVID, so that's kind of where I want to go post sliding. But I've always loved all those kind of shows.
Well, I'm just saying, if Channel 9 are listening, you and Dom, The Block, I mean, sells itself. Come on, like, just helps out there. Your least favourite foods are?
Tomatoes.
Ah, yes. Fellow tomato hater. Good. I'm glad they exist out there. Just, yeah, not a fan either. Jane's strawberry and asparagus. So...
Yeah, I remember the strawberry thing, yeah.
Okay, you slip some asparagus in there if you wanted to not do well the next day. You might have just answered this one. If you weren't an athlete, what would you be?
Now, I mean, interior designer, but I did also do sports science at uni. So one of those two.
One of those two. Jane answered a dinosaur expert.
Yeah, 1000%. That girl loves her rocks.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good to know.
And dinosaurs, obviously. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. Your favorite vacation spot is?
Coolangatta.
Oh, nice. Good spot.
The beach in general. But yeah.
Anything summer related, I can imagine, after all the winters
pretty
that you're
much
having to experience there. What is something people usually describe you as?
The first word that comes to mind is stubborn.
You can use it. That works.
Yeah.
You want to use it? Okay. What would you describe Jane
stubborn.
as? I'll see if you match any of her answers here.
Ooh.
She's put 4 here. So
She put 4. Right.
Also appreciate she's got a picture of her on her Instagram here working out in a dinosaur costume. So you're right, she loves a dinosaur.
Rock nerd.
She sadly hasn't put
I say
rock
this
nerd.
because there's a specific shop in Koningsberg we go to when we're in Koningsberg that she just absolutely loves.
Do you want me to give them to you?
Naked cat lady.
I wish she had to put that there. Wow. She's put coachable, hardworking, patient, and persistent.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that works. All right.
They're much better than mine.
I think she should have put those that you said. They sound much better to me. If you could be an Olympian in any other sport besides your own, what would it be?
There's a couple: beach volleyball and snowboard cross.
Yes, good answers. Summer and winter as well. I like that.
Yep.
Plenty of time before Brisbane for both there, Jackie. If you want to, replicate Uncle Paul, summer and winter, why not? You could do the same. Growing up, who was your favourite sports team?
The Maroons and the Lions.
Queensland girl at
and
heart.
then every kind of Aussie Olympic team, naturally.
That works exactly. Can I just say, at the time of recording this, go Lions for the final. I'm a Carlton supporter, so I obviously have no one to cheer for in the last few weeks. But I'm definitely on the Lions this week, as long as it's not Collingwood. Come on. And your guilty pleasure is? I appreciate Jane says watching reality TV in the summer. She likes Bachelorette, The Bachelor, and Big Brother.
I was going to say Anzac Bickies, and then there is a reality TV show called Say Yes to the Dress. which is
Yes.
a wedding dress based show. So yeah, that's
Yep.
those two.
So you're just watching that while eating Anzac Bickies basically all the time? Like,
Naturally, yeah.
perfect Sunday. Sit there with the Olympic
Yeah.
medal around your neck, just chilling, like, kind of going that way. Jackie, this has been a lot of fun. Before we let you go, social media, people, where can they sort of follow your journey between now and Milan?
Instagram's probably the best, which is at JAC_Narracott.
Perfect. And also, if anybody listening wants to get involved in skeleton, and they're listening to us in Australia, like, what can they do? How can they get involved?
Message me or go on to the Bobsleigh Skeleton Australia website and get in touch, and we will figure out a way to get you tested, and then from a strength and conditioning point of view, and then get on ice.
Simple. Sounds easy. I'll send you a message after this, and we can get me on the ice as well. Jackie, this has been an absolute honour and a pleasure to have you on the show to learn about your journey, everything else. Congratulations on the medal. I know it's been a few months at the time of recording this, but still many, many congratulations. One of our absolute favourite moments from Beijing, and we look forward to getting you back on in a couple of years' time with a gold around your neck. Complete the family collection, Jackie. Come on, we can do it.
In the team comp, why not?
Yes, exactly.